Hello and happiest of days, teacher here, folks. So today I'm doing the third and final of the Chronicles of Magnamund published this year, a few months ago, in 2025. This is Twilight's Edge. It's the third and final one. It's by August Hahn. This is about 250 pages long, sections long rather. I'll link it to you in the comments below. The idea here of these three, I've just recently done reviews for you folks, is to give you sort of a shorter, self-contained story. The first one, you were a sage in Veretta, and you basically had three skills that everybody had. You started with -2, but once you chose a class early on, you would basically, or a job rather, go ahead, get some skills, and you could raise them from -2 to 3 to up to other things based on what you wanted to do. It wasn't that hard to figure out what to do with that and that sort of thing. You were basically set in a home for the veterans from the Dark Lord's War. That was set up for them for mental issues that they were having. Right, kind of like the first insane asylum, right, or sanitarium, but that sort of. Then that one I gave an 8 to. The last one was more of a steampunk take on things. You didn't have to make any choices in the beginning except for what you started with, because you were more of an inventor. You weren't really a fighter or anybody with a developed character. The only thing that you did have was that after the first round of battle, you would get +1 combat skill for each of those things. It was more of a steampunk take. I didn't particularly care for that flavor file. It's super fast too. The first one took me about 4.5 hours to read, and the second one took me probably maybe less than 3 hours, because you weren't the rules didn't take that long to read, and the background information wasn't that important, and that sort of thing. So now we're knocking out Twilight's Edge, and this is more of a science fantasy rather than a steampunk, where you are an Aerith. Unlike the first two, you're actually a full-flown character. You're going to roll your dice for stats. You're going to have willpower too, because you're a witch from Shadakai, just like Grey Wolf was from from that 4-book series that I've recently gone back and read for this year. And that sort of thing. It's set in Magnamund. It's a stuff too. So I probably took an hour for me to create my character. Now, unlike Grey Wolf, I actually had to roll 3 dice, and I figured I was just going to go ahead and attach them to each one. And I tossed a 9 and a 7 and a 6. And that sort of a thing. So since it was a character, I assigned that to my willpower. But here you're only adding it from a 15 not a 20, because you're younger. Your name is Aerith. And that sort of thing. So I'm only at 24 rather than a 29. The same thing with endurance. I added my 6 to that and made myself 21. And then you have my combat skill to be medium at 17. Also, you can choose after rolling your dice, if you don't like them, you can get an 8, a 6, and a 4, which are all more than above average on a D10. Then, as a game book, you'll toss D10s for combat, like your combat skill against the other person. There's a combat results table. You toss .10s to resolve the combats, that sort of stuff. That helps. So that's basically the background of what's happening here. But here, I should have given myself the higher stat in combat skill, because you just typically aren't using your willpower as much here as you would have used. Like, for example, in the previous one, you might have had sorcery or elementalism, where you would be casting spells to defeat people. But here, rarely would you actually. I think just once I used mind control in order to control somebody, and that sort of thing. So, typically, you also get a mind blast, just like the Lone Wolf Ghost. It gives you +2 to your combat skill, but unlike it, you lose 1 willpower per turn. So I didn't even take that. So I did. You start with Beast Mastery. You automatically start with it. You also start with something called Nurturing, so you can swap 1 willpower for 2 hit points. In any of the ones, kind of like healing with Thirst No Combat or any endurance damage, it's the same. And then you also have something called Knowing, which when you touch a mechanical object, you can learn its background and how to control it, but you'll lose some willpower when you do. There's tons more fights than there are uses of the spells, and that sort of things. You definitely want to have it. So I took Demonism, which was never used. Ideally, it was used to detect evil and that sort of thing, but it's never used. I also took Arcane stuff to detect magic, and that was never used either. I also took Sacrifice, which was used pretty heavily. I also took one thing to heal. So what I could do every so often is I could use every hour or so I use something, and then, to keep myself swap one willpower for a D10 of healing, and that sort of thing. So I grabbed that, and also prevented that actually did use Wizard Choice. So that one probably, but I definitely would have preferred. Now, Sacrifice you do want to take, because Sacrifice here will let you sort of learn all your backstories and that sort of thing. You don't really want to take. All right, but there you are. So I created my character in like an hour. And then it took me like 4.5 hours to actually read. So that was pretty good, like a modern game book. So it was about 3 days of reading. Good stuff, loved it a lot. So this was hugely strong. So the basic premise here is that the evil forces have taken over tons of nearby planets and that sort of a thing, and then the good guys have taken over some planets too and have helped them out, or redeeming the ones that are bad, and that sort of thing. Is war, and Magnamund is between the two, right? And so if it falls to the Space Invaders, then it'll happen. So basically what happened a while ago is that a cloak called the Twilight Veil is basically out there, and it keeps people from in the stars from seeing and sensing Magnamund. So you're going to be on a spaceship that's out there on missions, helping to patrol the good parts of outside the edge. This is where Twilight Stage comes from, outside the thing, and fight people as they approach. You shouldn't be able to find it anyway. Now, because they're out there, and they could definitely be approached if you're super good, so they can't have like Kai, sort of thing. So your crew are a bunch of more misfits and ruffians, right? You're a captain was formerly a pirate, that sort of thing. So yeah, so those sorts of things are out there happening, and that sort of thing. But that's basically the basic concepts. Now, I think he just does an absolutely amazing job of this. I love the background, I love the character. I wish this character would have continued for a longer, because she starts off at level 5 like the Kai and Flight from the Dark or Autumn Snow. So I would have loved to have him get that taken care of and keep her around. I love her. We got to handle August Hahn some more stuff, and we give it this 10 out of 10. First one I gave it an 8. Second one I was very disappointed with, I gave it a 7. But this one's just an absolute classic. Love it lots. And it's a 10 out of 10 for you folks. But we got to get August Hahn some more stuff. It was incredibly strong. Loved it a lot. So I didn't mind the flavor of foul, because here it was explained as just a part of the history, and it would make sense, right? And that sort of thing. So I don't mind the flavor of foul here as much as I did in the previous one. This steampunk one, where it was just sort of the pushing into the next level. So there. But there. So check them out and let me know what your thoughts are. Have you read this? And if so, let me know what your thoughts are. Happy to engage with it further. As a reminder, I'm not a trained English major or critic, literary or otherwise, right? I've worked in higher ed all my life, so I just really haven't done this, right? So that means that your opinion will be just as valid as mine is, right? I'm a fan, just like you are. Now, I've done all 20, the original books by the Lone Wolf for this channel, as well as the 4-book series I just talked about, as well as Jude Evers's 4-book Freeway Warrior, where it's set in a post-apocalyptic Mad Max inspired world. All right, so check this out too. I love this stuff. I've done tons of this stuff. He's somebody who's so impactful in my life that he made my own top 10 appendix in, and that sort of a thing, because of how impactful and how often I've used it. I've even written a game book in the Lone Wolf style online for free. So check it out if you like it. You can also check his stuff, almost all of his older stuff, online for free on a website called projectaeon.com. So if you're interested in that, check it out for you folks. All right, you don't have to pay for it. And it's got like links and such rather than you just reading it like this. All right, but there you go. But this Twilight by August Hahn is an absolute classic to my mind, and that sort of thing. But there you go. I tried to do 3 of these reviews. In this case, it's a little more recent. This was published just a couple months ago. That sort of thing. But typically, for older things in novels or short stories or novellas sometimes too, or just poems or prose poems in the 3 genres that we cover: fantasy and science fiction and horror too, right? And then I do 3 of those reviews. I also have something on Wednesday. I do older video games reviews, and then on Saturday I do something I call Serial Saturday that I dedicate to deep forgotten sort of storytelling genres of movie and TV serials that heavily inspired and sold out stuff we sort of forgotten it in our quest for the new stuff, right? But they are heavily influential. So I've done Flash Gordon, I've done this horror series, that sort of thing on Saturday too, and then on Monday I do reviews of video games. I'm sorry, not video games, of war games like BattleTech or Dungeons and Dragons stuff. So check them out. And then if those 7 older things sound like your cup of tea, then great. Welcome to the channel. Have a seat. I think you'll enjoy your time here with us. And take your shoes off, dude. I don't even wear them. All right, so there you go. So go ahead and do all of that stuff. And while you're here, why not hit the YouTube stuff, like hit the subscribe button, the like button, the bell icon to be notified of those videos each week. And then also just share. But basically share and watch. There's a key ways of growing the channel. Alrighty, so there you go. Alright, and so that, as you can tell from the channels, all those passion, all those things, as well as even the title of this, is the passion of this. It's a quote by Jacques Schubert, who said that the worst thing about new books was they kept us from reading the old ones, right? And our passion for the new book, the new video game, the new movie, right? We have forgotten that these things are standing on the shoulders of giants and endeavors and the big giant too. So check those out. All right, I think you'll enjoy that too. All right, all those other things too. All right, so there you are. And if you just made it all the way to the end of this video, I want to thank you so very, very much for just taking some time out of your day and investing and watching my videos, right? Because we all so many things that are happening in our lives, and we're pulled in so many different directions too. So the fact that you spent this time with me, that's incredibly humbling, and I appreciate that so very, very much. So thanks again, and have an amazing day.